Climate is generally referred to as the anticipated weather conditions at a given location over a certain period of time. Climate can be measured at a number of geographic scales, such as the whole globe, countries, and cities, in which statistics regarding average temperatures, average number of rainy days, and the occurrence of droughts are expressed. Climate change refers to the alterations that occur within these statistics over a specific number of years, decades, or even centuries. Greenhouse gases such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, which is released through the burning of fossil fuels, among other activities, methane, which is as a result of human activities, nitrous oxide, which is as a result of organic fertilizers, combustion of fossil fuels, as well as among other activities, and chlorofluorocarbons are the most common gases which contribute to climate change. Climate change has become an extensive topic over the years. It also causes weather patterns to be less predictable and is a problem that is as a result of the emission of the mentioned greenhouse gases, which in turn affect our environment. Climate change poses great risk to various lengths of sustainable development in a direct or indirect manner. An example of climate change can be seen through extreme heat. This is basically the rise in the overall temperature of a location over a long period of time. The extreme heat is too much for the environment to bear and also leads to wildfires, which in turn kill fauna, flora, and also affects those who are located nearby. Another example of the evidence of climate change is that of the rise in sea levels. Sea levels have risen gradually over the past few decades as a result of various contributors such as thermal expansion and melting glaciers. The rise in sea levels has overwhelming effects on coastal habitats beyond inland and can cause events of erosion, wetland flooding, aquifer and contamination of agricultural soil with salt, as well as lost habitat for fish, birds, and plants. Ecosystem services are the benefits provided to humans through the transformation of resources or environmental assets, which include land, water, vegetation, and atmosphere, in which flow of essential goods and services are found. The examples of these goods and services are clean air, water, and food. Ecosystem services can also be referred to as components of nature which are directly enjoyed, consumed, or used to yield maximum human well-being. Ecosystem services comprise of components such as healthy soil, improved infiltration, nutrient cycle, water storage, air purification, food production, crime reduction, building energy savings, wildlife habitat, as well as noise mitigation. Examples of ecosystem services are regulating services. Regulating services are the benefits obtained from the regulation of ecosystem processes such as climate regulation, natural hazard regulation, purification of water, management of waste, pollination, and pest control. Another example of ecosystem services includes the provisioning of services. The provisioning of services basically refers to the provision of products which are basically obtained or found within an ecosystem. These products include food, water, fuel, fiber, genetic resources, nutrients, as well as fresh water.
Defining landscape change. There are controversies around what should be the definition of landscape. This probably explains why there is also no consensus on what landscape change is. However, the absence of a general definition of landscape or landscape change does not mean that attempts have not been made to at least describe what constitutes a landscape, thus making it possible to explain when landscape change can be said to have happened. In fact, most literature on the subject of landscape change are characterized by a common trend in approaching the subject. That is, they mainly start by describing the components of landscape and later explain how the change in these components constitutes landscape change. For instance, Turner 2017 defined a landscape as an area that is heterogeneous in at least one aspect of interest, meaning that a landscape is so complex that it can be viewed or studied from different perspectives, and therefore its complexity is associated with the components or elements that form part of it. In defining landscape and its subsequent change, it is worth noting that the concept of landscape change is located in the field of landscape ecology. Landscape ecology is defined as the study of patterns and processes of species assemblages and their interactions within landscapes. It is also referred to as the study of landscape patterns, species assemblages, and ecological processes. From the above definitions of landscape ecology, one can derive that a landscape is an area consisting of ecological processes, species of fauna and flora, the spatial pattern of the assemblage of these species, as well as the processes that lead to their grouping. In other words, landscape is not merely the physical appearance of the natural features of an area of land, but also the very processes that lead to such features, the species that find habitat in those features, as well as the spatial pattern which they reflect as a whole. With such a definition of landscape in mind, it is obvious to imagine what landscape change will be. Landscape change, also referred to as land transformation, is the radical change in land use and land cover over the long term. Changes such as from forest cover to the cultivation of row crop on the same land, from wetlands to the development of urban settlements, etc. Landscape change occurs into two different forms, namely change in the biophysical attributes of the Earth's surface or land cover change, and change as resulting from human actions on land cover as expressed in the purpose for which human use land or land use. Changes that are driven by human activities have significant impact for the structure and functioning of ecosystems, as well as for the earth system at large, and subsequently for the well-being of humanity. For example, forests in Rondônia, Brazil, when comparing two NASA photos of the same area, one taken in 1975 and another in 2009, it shows that dramatic loss of forest has occurred as a result of deforestation.